She was the woman he left behind. And today, she's the one who decides if he lives. Dr. Zaria Holt's eyes stopped at the name on the chart. Elias Grant. 6 years ago, he walked away from her dreams to chase his empire. She remembered the rain, the silence, the way he never turned back. Now, fate had done what pride never could, brought him to her, broken and breathless. The door opened. The air shifted. Elias stood there. The same man, only smaller behind tired eyes and a trembling hand clutching his chest. For a second, the room forgot to breathe. "Good afternoon, Mr. Grant," she said evenly, hiding the storm in her voice. He froze, searching her face like a man seeing a ghost. Zaria. Her expression didn't change. "It's Dr. Holt now." The monitor beeped faster, betraying them both, because some hearts never heal quietly, and some meetings aren't coincidences. If this story touches something in you, one simple subscribe keeps this heartbeat alive and helps the next story find its way home. Just stay. Hours earlier, before fate brought him to that hospital. The storm had already begun. The boardroom shimmered with glass and tension. Elias Grant stood at the head of the table, a king in his castle of ambition. Charts glowed on the screen. Voices argued about profit and projections. He hadn't eaten since dawn. Coffee was his fuel, pride his armor. When the dizziness came, he brushed it off. Billionaires don't faint. They power through. That had always been his line. But as his vision blurred, the words turned bitter. His chest tightened, and the confident smile slipped before anyone noticed. The next moment, his world tilted. His assistant's scream echoed against marble walls. He saw the ceiling, white and endless, spinning like punishment. Hours later, reporters gathered outside St. Miriam Heart Institute. Headlines whispered scandal. Tech titan collapses mid-meeting. Inside the ambulance, Elias tried to breathe past the ache clawing through his ribs. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about shareholders or success. Only a question burned behind his eyes. How did he end up here? Powerful, yet powerless. And somewhere beyond the hospital doors, the woman he'd left in the rain was about to learn that fate had written her name on his heartbeat. The door opened with a soft click. Zaria Holt stepped in, steady as breath. The smell of antiseptic filled the small exam room, sharp and clean. Elias looked up. His pulse stuttered. The years fell away in an instant. She was here, real, calm, untouchable. The woman who once loved him now wore a white coat and eyes colder than marble. "Good afternoon, Mr. Grant," she said, voice even, controlled. "I'm Dr. Holt." For a man used to commanding rooms, Elias found no words, just the memory of that night, the rain, her voice breaking, his silence as he walked away. He tried to speak, but his throat refused. She turned a page on her clipboard, the sound crisp and final, like the door he once closed on her heart. The silence between them stretched thin. It wasn't empty, it was full, of everything they never said. She didn't flinch. He finally blinked, realizing this wasn't reunion, it was reckoning. Zaria reached for the pulse monitor, movements exact, professional. She clipped the device to his finger without meeting his eyes. The machine began its rhythm, steady at first, then faster, betraying what both tried to hide. Beep, beep, beep. Elias forced a small laugh. "Guess it's been a long week." Her reply was calm, clinical. "Try to relax, Mr. Grant. You're making the machine nervous." He looked at her, searching for warmth, for anything familiar. There was none, only precision. For a moment he hated that her calm made him feel small. Then he remembered. He'd taught her that calm by leaving. Her fingers brushed his wrist as she adjusted the lead. His pulse jumped again. The monitor screamed the truth neither could say aloud. She noted the numbers. "Elevated heart rate," she murmured, then paused, softer. Some things never learn. Their eyes met for a second too long. He smiled faintly, ashamed. The heart doesn't lie, even when the mouth does. The sound of the monitor faded into memory. Elias blinked, and rain filled his mind. The last night they stood together. She had been crying, voice trembling as she said goodbye. He had turned away, believing ambition would quiet guilt. It never did. Now, under sterile lights, he saw the same woman, unbroken, stronger than before. He wondered if she'd ever cried again. Across the room, Zaria felt the old ache press behind her ribs. She remembered the click of his apartment door, the cold air swallowing her words. She had told herself to forget. She never truly did. Two people, once one heartbeat, now strangers wearing the same silence. Zaria closed his file with quiet finality. "We'll continue tomorrow," she said. Elias wanted to ask 1,000 things, why she looked at him like that, why his chest still hurt, but he said nothing, because sometimes silence is the only way to say I remember. Later that evening, the results came in, and with them, the truth he could no longer ignore. Zaria sat behind her desk, eyes fixed on the glowing results. Stress levels spiking, arrhythmia risk high, sleep deprivation severe. She could almost hear the chart whisper what pride had hidden. He was breaking from the inside out. Elias watched her face, searching for a sign. "So," he said with a forced smile, "I'm not dying?" She didn't look up. Not yet. Her tone was even, but the words hit harder than any headline ever could. He leaned back, laughter dry, fragile. "Guess that's comforting." "It should be frightening," she replied quietly. "You've been running too hard for too long. Your body is waving a white flag." He wanted to make a joke, but the weight in her eyes stopped him. Zaria slid the report toward him. "You need rest, real rest, or your heart will make the choice for you." For the first time in years, Elias felt something stronger than control, fear, not of death, but of what it might cost him to live. Elias stood to leave, the paper trembling in his hand. He turned halfway to the door, voice rough. 6 years? And I never got to say I'm sorry. Zaria froze. Her hand rested on the chart, but her face stayed calm. Then maybe silence was mercy. He tried to speak again, but the room had already closed around her words. Mercy. The word burned more than blame. She returned to her notes, the pen steady, though her heart wasn't. Elias lingered for a moment, then left, the sound of the door soft but final. Outside, the hallway smelled like antiseptic and regret. He breathed in both. Inside, Zaria sat still, pretending the echo of his voice didn't feel like old glass cracking beneath her ribs. Some wounds don't reopen, they just hum quietly beneath the skin, reminding you they're still there. Outside, the city lights blurred past his car windows. Bright, distant, merciless. The penthouse windows stretched over Atlanta's skyline, all light and distance. Elias stood before them, tie loosened, the city flickering below like a nervous pulse. He should have felt powerful. Instead, he felt small. Every success, every dollar, suddenly meaningless beside the sound of her voice saying mercy. He poured a drink, then stopped halfway. The glass shook. His reflection in the window looked like a stranger. Tired eyes, fading confidence, a man haunted by choices money couldn't fix. His chest thudded unevenly, the same pattern as in the hospital. He pressed a hand against it, exhaling. "Breathe, damn it," he muttered. The city didn't answer. Power had never felt lonelier. Somewhere below, a single light burned in the hospital wing. He wondered if she was still awake, writing reports, forgetting him again. For the first time, Elias Grant, the man who conquered everything, realized he might not survive his own silence. The next morning his phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, contracts, noise. Then one alert cut through it all. Abnormal cardiac results. Contact Dr. Holt immediately. His throat went dry. He called the number on instinct, waiting through the tone. No answer. He tried again. Still silence. When the hospital finally returned his call, a nurse spoke. "Dr. Holt reviewed your tests. She'd like you to come in first thing tomorrow morning." "Is it serious?" he asked, though he already knew. "I'm afraid she'll explain that herself, Mr. Grant." The line went dead, leaving only the faint hum of his penthouse. He stared at the phone in his hand, suddenly aware of the pulse hammering behind his ribs. He had spent a lifetime chasing control. Now his own body had turned into a ticking clock, and she was the only one who could tell him how much time was left. Zaria waited in her office the next morning, papers spread before her. Elias arrived early, face pale but proud. She gestured for him to sit. "Your results show chronic strain. Stress is killing you faster than time ever could." He gave a weary smile. "You always did have a way with words." Her lips twitched once. "Words don't fix hearts, Mr. Grant. Choices do." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Then tell me what to change." She studied him for a moment, her gaze softer than before. "Start by slowing down, and by listening, really listening, for once." The air thickened between them, filled with what had been lost and what might still remain. For a moment, the doctor and the man forgot their titles. There were only two hearts, beating unevenly, trying to remember how to speak the same language again. Elias shifted in his chair as Zaria explained the recovery plan. The words began to fade under the hum in his ears. His vision narrowed. A rush of heat climbed up his neck. He tried to speak, but air refused to move. "Elias?" Her voice cut through the haze. He swayed, and she caught him before he hit the floor. Her hand pressed against his chest. His heartbeat thundered beneath her palm, wild, erratic, desperate. "Breathe," she ordered. He did, shallow at first, then deeper. Their faces were inches apart. The faint scent of her perfume pulled him back to another time. He whispered, voice rough but playful, "Guess I still make your heart race." She froze, eyes flashing between concern and old hurt. Then she stepped back, steadying herself. "You should rest," she said softly. "You're not fine." He nodded, but the corner of his mouth curved in regret. She turned away, hiding the tremor in her hand. For a heartbeat, neither doctor nor patient existed. Only two memories colliding, still breathing each other's air. The next morning, Zaria reviewed her notes, forcing professionalism to anchor her. When Elias arrived for a quick follow-up, the tension from yesterday still hung between them. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." She kept her eyes on the chart. "You didn't, but I need to be clear. You're my patient, not my past." He looked at her, guilt softening his voice. "Understood, doctor." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the rhythmic tick of the wall clock filled the room. She hated how his silence could still find the cracks in her composure. Zaria closed the file, firm. "Follow the treatment plan. No skipped medication, no stress." "I'll try," he said with a faint smile. "You'll do more than try," she replied. It wasn't anger in her tone. It was reclaiming ground that had once belonged to pain. Later that week, her phone buzzed during a late shift. A message from Elias. "Dinner. Just a thank you. No strings, no history. 1 hour." Zaria stared at the screen, unsure if she was more annoyed or curious. She typed busy, then erased it. Twice. He sent another text. "I owe you that much." A sigh escaped her. Maybe it was professional courtesy. Maybe unfinished business. Either way, she heard herself reply, "Fine. 1 hour." When she stepped out of the hospital that night, the air felt strangely lighter. She told herself it was just dinner, just closure. But deep down, something quieter stirred. A whisper from the part of her heart she thought she had silenced. Sometimes the past doesn't knock. It waits until you open the door yourself. The restaurant glowed soft amber, all candlelight and quiet music. For the first few minutes it was almost easy. They talked about work, travel, old books. She even laughed once, and he watched the sound like it was sunlight. Then a familiar voice sliced through the calm. "Elias, there you are." Zaria turned. A tall blonde woman stood by the table, flawless and confident. Cameras flashed from the doorway. "I'm Cassandra," she said sweetly, turning to Zaria. Elias's fiancée. The word hit like a slap. Zaria froze, her breath catching before pride steadied her. Elias shot up, eyes wide. "Cassandra! That's not—" The clicks of cameras drowned him out. People whispered. The room spun in heat and shame. Zaria reached for her purse. "You haven't changed," she said, voice trembling but sharp. Then she walked out. Elias followed, but all he saw was the echo of the woman he'd already lost once, and might have just lost again. By the time he reached the door, she was already gone, and the night had started to cry for both of them. Rain lashed the streets outside as Zaria stepped into the night. She didn't run. She walked, each step slow, deliberate. Behind her, Elias's voice cut through the downpour. "Zaria, wait!" She didn't turn. Not this time. Her heels splashed against the pavement. The cold rain soaked through her coat, but she felt nothing. Pain had a different temperature. He caught up halfway down the block, breathless. "Please, let me explain." She stopped, but didn't face him. "Some storms you don't run from," she said softly. "You walk through them." And she did. He watched her fade into the blur of city lights, water running down his face, unsure if it was rain or regret. In that moment, Elias Grant, man of power and empire, finally understood what loss really sounded like. Footsteps leaving and never coming back. By morning, the storm had a headline: Billionaire's Secret Dinner Scandal. Elias woke to his name plastered across every feed. Cameras, captions, speculation. The image that hurt most wasn't Cassandra's smile, it was Zaria's face as she walked away. He threw the tablet down, but the words clung to him like wet clothes. Cold. Calculated. Heartless. Reporters camped outside Grantion Tower. Investors called for explanations. Cassandra enjoyed the spotlight. "Just a misunderstanding," she said to the press, her ring gleaming. Elias barely heard her. He stared at the photo. Zaria mid-step, rain in her hair, pride in her posture. Every headline felt like punishment written in pixels. Money could bury scandals, but it couldn't buy silence from guilt. For the first time, he didn't care about the market. He cared about the woman who would never trust him again. And as the city judged him, he realized fame could build a tower high enough to touch clouds, but never high enough to escape shame. He called once, then twice, then every day, no answer. Flowers arrived at the hospital, white lilies, roses, notes written in shaky pen. None were accepted. He left messages, long and short. "I'm sorry. Please call. You deserve better than a headline." Each one met with nothing. For a man who owned everything, silence was the one thing he couldn't buy. His nights stretched long. The penthouse that once symbolized victory now echoed with emptiness. He replayed their last words. "Some storms you don't run from, you walk through." He wanted to tell her he was walking through it now, alone, soaked, bare. Every unanswered call was another mirror breaking inside him. He wondered if she deleted his name or if she kept it, like he did hers, in the space between heartbeat and regret. Sometimes love's punishment isn't anger, it's absence that never ends. 4 days later, Elias sat in a meeting surrounded by suits and numbers. His assistant was speaking, but the words blurred into static. Profit, expansion, deadlines. It all sounded like nonsense compared to one thought pulsing in his chest. Go. Without warning, he stood. "Cancel the rest of my day." "Sir?" his assistant stammered. He was already walking out. Rain lashed the streets again, Atlanta gray and trembling. He didn't care. He drove without direction, guided by guilt more than GPS. He remembered the last time he'd driven in rain, 6 years ago, away from her. This time, he was driving toward the only thing that still felt alive. The hospital lights glowed ahead like a beacon or a warning. He parked crooked, slammed the door, and stepped into the downpour. Every drop felt like confession. Every flash of lightning like a dare to face what he'd broken. He was done hiding behind titles. He was ready to earn forgiveness, even if it killed him trying. The receptionist at St. Miriam Hart Institute looked up, startled. Mr. Grant, you're soaked. I'll wait, he said, voice rough, rain dripping from his sleeves. She's in surgery right now. Then I'll wait, he repeated, taking a seat. Hours passed. Water pooled at his feet. Patients came and went. Nurses whispered. No one told him to leave. The billionaire sat motionless, eyes fixed on the hallway where he'd last seen her disappear. Every tick of the clock stretched his resolve. The chill in his bones matched the cold truth. No amount of money could hurry forgiveness. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, he waited, not as Elias Grant the mogul, but as a man stripped of everything but hope. 2 hours later, the elevator doors opened. Zaria walked out, exhausted, surgical cap in her hand. She saw him instantly and stopped. For the first time, she looked at him not with anger, but with disbelief. Elias? Her voice was low, careful. He stood, rain still clinging to his shirt. I need to talk to you. You can't just show up here, she said, glancing around. I know, he answered, softer now. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded toward her office. 5 minutes. The walk there felt longer than 6 years. He followed her inside, dripping on the floor, his heart louder than the storm outside. She set her files down. Say what you came to say. He hesitated, words catching in his throat. That night at dinner, it wasn't what it looked like. Cassandra isn't my fiancée. She's an investor's daughter. The lie started years ago, and I was too proud to correct it. Zaria crossed her arms. So you let the world think she owned you because it was convenient? Yes, he admitted. But I cared the moment it cost me you. Her eyes softened a fraction, then hardened again. 5 minutes, she repeated. He nodded. Then let me spend them telling the truth. Elias stood in front of her desk, drenched but steady. The words came out slow, heavy. That engagement, it was never real. Years ago, Cassandra's father wanted a merger. When rumors started, I let them live. It protected the deal. It protected me. Zaria's brows lifted, arms crossed. And the truth didn't matter? I thought none of it mattered, he said quietly, until it hurt you. The admission landed between them like thunder. For the first time, Zaria saw not arrogance, but exhaustion. All that power, she murmured, and you couldn't say one honest sentence. He looked down. Money doesn't buy courage. It hides the lack of it. The storm outside cracked the windows with light. Inside, silence filled the space, thicker than guilt. Zaria closed her eyes for a moment, then said, You should have cared when it was still possible to fix. Elias nodded. I'm trying to now. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was the first true thing he'd said in years. Zaria leaned back, arms still folded. You didn't just leave, Elias. You ran. He flinched at the word. She continued. You chose fear over love, pride over peace. Don't pretend it was anything noble. He didn't argue. His voice broke instead. You're right. I wasn't protecting you. I was protecting my pride. That confession stripped away everything polished about him. For once, he wasn't a headline or a billionaire. He was just a man standing in the wreckage he made. Zaria exhaled, slow and measured. You wanted to build an empire, but you can't build anything on the pieces of someone else's heart. I know, he said, and I've been trying to live with that ever since. Their eyes met. The air softened, though pain still hovered. Somewhere behind the hurt, something small flickered. Recognition, or maybe the first fragile edge of forgiveness. Sometimes truth doesn't heal right away. It only stops the bleeding. Zaria looked down at her hands. After you left, I almost quit medicine, she said. Every patient reminded me of something I couldn't save. Elias stared, the words cutting through him. You? I couldn't focus, couldn't breathe, but helping others, that became the only way to heal myself. She looked up, eyes bright but steady. You taught me what not to give up on. He swallowed hard. I didn't deserve you then. Maybe you don't now either, she said softly, but people change. He wanted to reach for her, to say the thing he'd buried for 6 years, but she shifted first, keeping the desk between them. "You should go home. Rest," she said, though her voice trembled. "Your heart's had enough for one day." He nodded, but didn't move. "It's never just one day when it's you, Zaria." Her name lingered in the air like a wound that still bled hope. Before she could respond, his body tensed. The color drained from his face. "Elias?" she said sharply. He grabbed the edge of the desk, breath shallow. Zaria rushed around, catching him as his knees buckled. "Stay with me. Breathe." He obeyed, chest rising in ragged bursts. Her hand found his pulse. Wild, uneven, alive. "Look at me," she said firmly. "You're safe." The tremor eased slowly. The monitor beeped back into rhythm. She exhaled. His eyes opened, finding hers, dazed but grateful. "You really still make my heart race," he whispered weakly. She shook her head, half a laugh, half a sob. "You're impossible." "I'm yours," he murmured, then closed his eyes again. Her fingers lingered on his wrist before she pulled away. "Rest," she said softly. "I've got you." And she did, though it scared her how true that still felt. The next morning, Zaria found an envelope on her desk. Inside, a letter in his handwriting. This isn't an apology. It's a start. When she looked up, Elias was at the door, healthier color in his face. He placed a file beside the letter. "I'm funding a new heart center," he said. "Research labs, recovery units, scholarships for students who need a chance. It's already signed." She frowned, confused. "You're donating it to the hospital?" He shook his head. "To you. It's called the Holt Heart Institute." Her throat tightened. "Why?" "Because you saved my life twice. Once when you treated me, and again when you reminded me who I was." Zaria stood silent, torn between anger, awe, and something deeper. "This isn't charity," he added softly. "It's redemption." Outside, thunder rolled into calm. Inside, the air shifted. He had turned his wealth into an act of love, and for the first time it didn't feel like payment. It felt like grace. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then her tears finally fell. Zaria stood still, the weight of his words pressing against her chest. The file with his donation lay between them like a bridge built from ashes. "You make it sound easy to forgive," she whispered. Elias shook his head, voice low. "It's not, but it's worth it." Her eyes shimmered. For years, she had imagined what she would say if he ever came back. None of it felt like this. There was no grand apology, no perfect line, only truth, quiet and trembling. She looked at him, truly looked. The arrogance was gone. What remained was a man stripped bare, asking not for love, but for a chance to make something right. Her voice broke softly. "You've changed." "I had to," he said. "You can't lose someone like you twice and stay the same." The tears came before she could stop them, not from pain this time, but from the slow, unexpected release of it. Outside, thunder rolled into silence. Inside, forgiveness began to sound a lot like peace. The rain had stopped. The world outside the office glowed with the soft gold of evening. Zaria turned toward the window, wiping her eyes. Behind her, Elias stepped closer, careful but certain. "I never expected grace," he said quietly. She turned, and their eyes met. The distance between them, once filled with years and regret, was now only a breath. Her hand trembled before she let it fall into his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, steady, unsure. No promises, no speeches, just two people standing in the quiet, finally letting their hearts find the same rhythm again. He smiled, small and real. "Guess this time, the machine's not lying." She laughed through tears, the sound soft but sure. Sometimes healing doesn't come as thunder. It comes as stillness, when two broken hearts remember they were always meant to beat together. Sunlight poured through the glass atrium of the Holt Heart Institute. Reporters, doctors, and families filled the lobby, applause rising like music. Zaria stood at the podium, white suit crisp, voice calm. "This center isn't just a building," she said. "It's a promise that every heart, no matter how broken, deserves a second chance." Her words rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed, but she didn't flinch. She glanced toward the front row where Elias stood. Healthy, proud, his eyes fixed only on her. When she finished, applause thundered. Elias joined her at the ribbon, their hands brushing as they cut it together. He leaned close, whispering, "You've always been the heart of it all." She smiled softly. "And you finally learned to listen to yours." Confetti filled the air. Laughter followed. For the first time, their story no longer belonged to pain. It belonged to legacy. Atlanta glowed beneath a peach sunset. The rooftop garden of the Institute was quiet, touched by wind and light. Zaria turned when she heard his voice. "You look nervous, Mr. Grant." He laughed softly. "Maybe I am." She tilted her head. "That's new?" He reached for her hand, holding it like something sacred. "You once told me healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's learning to live with what remains." She nodded, eyes gentle. "I did." He dropped to one knee, heart pounding. "Then what remains of me is you." Her breath caught. Tears blurred the world as she whispered, "Elias." He smiled, voice shaking. "Marry me. Let's stop surviving and start living." Zaria knelt with him, laughter and tears mixing in the fading light. "Yes," she said. "Yes." And when they kissed, the city lights bloomed behind them, proof that love once lost can still find its way home. A year later, morning light spilled through the hospital room. Zaria sat on the bed, a tiny baby in her arms, skin soft, eyes wide. Elias stood beside her, awe in every breath. The nurse smiled. "Congratulations, Dr. Holt and Mr. Grant. It's a girl." Zaria looked down at the child, whispering, "Hope." Elias grinned. "Hope Grant. Perfect." He kissed her forehead, his voice breaking. "You gave me life twice." Zaria smiled, eyes full. "And you gave me home." Outside, Atlanta hummed awake, sunlight warming the glass towers. Inside, 3 heartbeats moved in unison, steady, alive, at peace. Sometimes second chances aren't luck, they're grace. And grace begins when love stops keeping score. If you believe every heart deserves a second chance, share this story, and let someone's heart remember how to beat again.